Okay, good.
That's it.
Well, welcome, Mary. All right. And our speaker today is,
Who's our speaker now?
she's up in the,
Okay, on top.
yeah, oh, no, Wanjiku. All right. Yeah, good to see you.
Okay.
Our speaker today is Wanjiku J, Mwangi, who is a teacher and spiritual companion and spiritual companion, and integrated healer within the Anglican tradition. She holds an MDiv in Biblical Studies and a PGDE from African International University, formerly NEGST, Nairobi Evangelical Graduate School of Theology. Wanjiku is a published author and the founder of and leader of Integrated Living. And just
You can't just
okay. At this point, I will turn it over to Marina because I just want to.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So Wanjiku, thank you very much for making yourself available to speak to us, and the topic seems to be quite interesting, not something that not every one of us are involved in or have too much knowledge about. So with that, I will ask you to begin your presentation, and perhaps there are things that about yourself that you would like to tell us about in connection with your work. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Marina. Do I have screen share?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead and at the bottom of your screen, push the button screen share and go ahead and share the screen. There we go, we got it.
Okay.
Good. We can say, go ahead and put it on presentation. Very good. And that was very good. And you may begin.
Are you recording it, Tom?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me this evening. It's 5 p.m. Kenyan time. I'm really happy to be a part of this group of women that I've been sharing for the past couple of weeks, and until I think next week should be the last woman now.
Yes.
So it's good to be among this community of fellow Kenyan, African, Black women. Yeah. As you have heard, my name is Wanjiku. That's how you say it in my mother tongue. And I do a lot of things, but mostly I like to say that I do healing work, which is very much informed by my life story, as you're going to see some of it in the presentation today. If it's okay with you, we're going to start.
Yes.
And then we will see how we go from here. So my topic for today is, for I have sinned and fallen short of the glory of structured religion, which is like, what is that? What do you mean by that? Yeah, we're just about to find out. So I hold an MDiv in Biblical Studies, and I am a spiritual director in the Anglican tradition. So we're gonna start with some definitions, just some working definitions, and we're gonna meet Wanjiku. We're gonna do a visual divina, look at a text and discuss it. Then we're gonna have a call to action. Faithful to my tradition, we're gonna have some liturgy, and then we're gonna have question and answer. So I'm hoping we're gonna have a wonderful time together. Welcome everybody who has been able to make it today. I hope we're gonna be able to learn together and see how it goes from here. I actually have a question, Marina. Can people be able to like send chat messages if I ask like a question? Can they be able to respond?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Okay, then that's good. That's wonderful.
Or they could just raise their hands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I may not be able to see them if they raise their hands though. But anyway, I'm sure you'll help me.
We will control that part.
Yeah, you'll help me. Thank you very much. All right, so just looking at organized, what do we mean by structure? What do I mean when I talk about structural religion? This is basically organized religion. It's people who have come together and have put themselves together under a specific order. And it's organized around leadership hierarchies. That is a way of leadership, top down, congressional. Some people have what we call it, where members of the congregational, where members decide what happens. So different leadership hierarchies. And then we have symbols, we have crosses, we have tombs, we have all types of different types of crosses. We have all types of symbols that some people use in this kind of organized religions. Then we have rituals. These are things, actions that people do. And then we have creeds and liturgies. Most of them are written. For example, in the Anglican Church, we have the Book of Common Prayer, begin with the 1662 until the recent editions. Then, of course, we have theology and understandings. That is their understanding of God, the way they interact with the divine, the way they define the divine. So all that makes up organized religion. In Kenya, we have several named and structured religions, including the Anglican Church, which I'm a part of, and then the Catholic Church. We have Muslims, we have Evangelicals and Pentecostals, just to give an idea of what I mean when I talk about structured religion. In the Anglican Church, the structure is around 3 tenets. We call it the 3-legged stool. So we are structured around scripture, tradition, and reason. Okay, we're going to look at those in the next slide. And most of the Anglican Church tradition is the liturgy that I've talked about, which is the original 1662 Book of Common Prayer. And in different provinces, for example, the Kenyan province, we have different variations that have been modified to fit the needs and maybe the flavor, I would say, of the people of that space. Okay. Then, good. So what do I mean when I talk about the 3 tenets of the Anglican Church? The scripture is as open as that. It's the Old Testament and the New Testament. These are the canons of scripture. And this sometimes will include the middle books that some people don't like to talk about and some people want to talk about. So all of them. And then when we talk about tradition, it's a practice of understanding this scripture. So that when people have read this scripture, what have their understanding been? And then from that understanding, what has practice become? And as again, I said, the liturgy that we use is formed from the 1662 Book of Common Prayer. So tradition is a very is a bit fluid. So tradition can be like who decide what is tradition? Is it the Church of England? Is it the province of Kenya? Is it what province? So it's also it's hanging in there. So then there's reason. Really, it's consensus on matters, and this is anything that is not covered by scripture or tradition. And if you look at the church tradition of the Anglican Church, is that most of those in leadership have been men. So they are the ones who have decided what is reason. So if they decide this is reason, then this is reason. So again, up for debate. All right. So let's come to sinning. Sinning and falling short of the glory of structured religion shows itself in very many ways. And one of the things when I talk about the glory of structured religion is that it means towing the line. It means staying within a specific box. It means you're adhering to what has been described for you, what has been decided for you, how you should be, how you should present yourself, how you should sometimes even approach God, how you should relate with the divine, and how you should relate with the other members of the religion. And women who have fallen outside the specified categories of acceptability within the church have often found themselves ostracized or marginalized. And when I talk about these women, I'm talking about categories of women like the unmarried. So most of the church, when it comes to women, if you're a child, then you're in Sunday school, that's fine. We accept you. You move from Sunday school, then you're a youth, that's good. Then now when you don't get married, they're like, what's going on with this? Where do we place them? So now you're not in the box. You're not in the described in the category that is acceptable. Women who are separated or divorced, widows, women who have born children, women or girls who have born children out of wedlock, single mothers, women who cannot bear children, or women who have chosen not to bear children. There's a lot of like, where are you? Who are you? You're not following the path that is laid out. You become a girl, you become a youth, then you get married, you get children, you become a mother, you become a grandma, then you die. That's your line. You should not go outside this line. You should not go outside this structure. And then we have these other women who are gifted in ways that patriarchy has decided is exclusive for men. Women who have leadership capacities, women who have gifts of prophecies, women who have gifts that are public, women who are not moving in the gifts that have been quote unquote acceptable for women, like hospitality, welcoming visitors, being in the background, women who are at the front. Then there's a problem. Why do you want to be where you're not supposed to be? This is your structure. So in my experience, these women are punished by structural religion in very public and degrading ways. And this is my experience in Kenya, but also with other places in the continent and also outside the continent. This is, for example, you can be denied the communion if you're in the church, admission to unions, and by unions, I mean the gatherings and the spaces where women are allowed to meet or gather together for encouragement or for nourishment. There's also access to leadership opportunities. That is one of the punishments that is given. You will not be getting that. And then further to the children. So some children, they will be denied either the sacraments or admission to spaces. For example, in Kenya, there's a school that if your mother is a single mother, you will not be accepted into that school. And it's one of the most prestigious schools. They will not accept you into their primary school, their secondary school, and they also have a university. They're not accept you into their university if a child does not have a father. So it's very skewed and a lot of punishments on women, again, from structured religion. And these punishments mostly are meted upon women. And as we've seen, it does not always happen to the men. Okay. So this is my story, Meet Wanjiku. Here I am. How do I fit into all this, into those who have sinned and fallen short of the glory? I'm a woman, first of all, who struggled to bear children. I was married for a couple of years, and when I was married, I had a lot of difficulties. And for the first 5 years of that marriage, I couldn't get children, and I lost 2 of them to miscarriages. And this is not something this is something that is really looked down upon and gossiped upon, and it's something that is mostly only associated with a woman. Think about words like barren. I don't know, when you think about barren, what comes to mind? Is it a man or is it a woman? Most of the time, the person who comes to your mind is a woman. So being associated with words like barren, infertile, and suffering the exclusion, the talk, and the misunderstandings. And then after some time, my marriage did end, and now I'm a divorced woman. Now that is even like adding extra layers of sins on myself. Right now, I'm a single mother of 5 for my 2 dead children and my 3 living children, and I'm very grateful to God for them. And again, that's another layer. So of how far away from the structure I continue to go. And with this and with what we have so far, I've been able to, bring to us. How do you think such, my position in life affects how I relate with the church? Most of the time, I have found that the space within the church is no longer welcoming. Is just have a seat, just relax, just think about how you have fallen, just think about how you can be helped, what assistance you need, and not looking at you as somebody who can contribute, who is a resource. And this is me, a whole MDiv holder, a spiritual director, all my training in trauma therapy, but still just have a seat and just relax. I think it is good for you to just relax. I remember when I was going through my separation, one of the church leaders told me, we don't like people who have problems in the church. Women who have problems in the church, we don't like them very much. We want you go outside there, you solve your problems. Then when you don't have problems, you come to the church. Now, where else am I supposed to go? And I have my problems. Where do I take my problems if not to the church? So like the They tell you without telling you, just sit down, like just sit down now, because your matter is a bit complicated. So it becomes, how would I say? A bench warming now becomes my new routine within the church. I think you can get the drift. Okay. Something else about me. This is now my reality within the church. I have felt a call to the Holy Orders for a while now, really for many years. And since I got my training that would, allow me to join the Holy Orders within the Anglican Church, I have made 3 unsuccessful attempts, really, to join the Holy Orders and gotten all types of excuses. You don't have heritage. You became an Anglican when you're an adult. There's not the right time. You should wait a bit longer. There's this, there's that, all types of excuses. While men who are my peers who went to school with have just gotten a straight line, all the way to, priesthood and gotten to serve and do their thing. And when I try to ask, it's not like good reasons. It's no, maybe not, maybe now is not the right time. Maybe you need to, maybe all this. And all these applications that I made, the 3 of them, I was married at that time. So you can imagine right now when I'm checking the divorce box status, what would happen to my applications? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, how my chances are. And I'm not an exception. This is not a Wanjiku thing. It's something that affects almost all women within the church, and not just my Anglican church, in all structured religions, really. And for example, in my own Anglican church, it's only in recent years that women who were single mothers or were not wedding church were allowed to join what we call the Mothers Union. It's one of the important unions within the church. And in other spaces, whether it's leadership, whether it's the access becomes limited and more limited and more limited. And I think you begin to get the idea that many women who are seen not to toe the line, are seen not to fit the box, are seen not to fit the description, are seen to fall short of this glory, of this structured religion, not to have your place. They do not have access to a lot of what I would say sharing of their gifts and sharing of their persons with the specific bodies that the religious or faith bodies that they have chosen to be a part of. As if this reality in church is not enough, there's a social and academic reality. So this is another reality for me. Society, again, as we socialize, to treat, under patriarchy, to treat any woman who does not toe the line as an outsider, and I'm not an exception. So even from the way people talk, really, the woman who was going to the world during the middle of the day was not going there because she wanted to go there. She wanted to go there because that was the only time she was safe to go there alone, without society ostracizing her. So a lot of women who they become like loners. They don't have a space because the languaging of society, the behavior of society automatically excludes them. You can just begin to imagine the gossip and rumor mills when you cannot have a child, when you choose not to have a child, when you don't get married and you're told you're ripe for marriage. Then when you go ahead and get divorced, or you get widowed when you're young, I don't know when you're supposed to get widowed. It looks like there's a time when you're supposed to get a lot of ostracization. And I will not even go to how I have been told about, how much God hates divorce and how I have sinned because I'm divorced. But I know, because the people who have told me, they have not done the same to my former spouse. So again, all these sins again in quotes and out of quotes, that the burden of them being borne by the women, but not the men. And my academic life was not spared either. I was accepted in one of the prestigious evangelical schools to take my PhD, I think 3 years ago. And I passed through. I was actually accepted for two programs. Then I went ahead, started applying for scholarships. And when I was applying for the school, I was married. But through the process, then I was no longer married. And so when it came to the process of the scholarships, they're like, when you made these applications, you're married. When now you're not married, there's a problem here. And they're like, no, we cannot accept you when you don't have a husband to vouch for you. You're what we call, they said I am unstable. You're unstable, so we cannot support your dreams to do a PhD. It was really, really heartbreaking to say that. I'm smiling now because I've dealt with it, but it was very heartbreaking to say the least. So a lot of consequences really are bundled on women who, again, I repeat my line, have sinned or seem to have sinned and fallen short of the glory of structural religion, which is very sad because, as we're going to see, that's not the way Christ, Jesus the Nazarene treats women. That's not the example that he gives to us, even to the ones that are really pushed or claim to be on the extreme of whatever sin has been described by the law. He still brings them close, names them, and honors them. When we look at the biblical narrative, this story that I'm sharing is not unique. It's not unique to human history. It's not unique to biblical narrative. It is that a different standard has been put for women that is not the same that has been put for men. A lot of atrocities have been visited on women that are really recorded in the Old and New Testament, which is really quite unfortunate. And once again, women being, shown and being recorded to have borne the burden of what has been described as sin, or what men or what society has defined as sin, even when men who have been involved in such sins are let to go, let off scot-free. And in the New Testament narrative of the woman caught in adultery is one that really catches my attention. And because this woman is caught in adultery, supposedly alone, and this story is just one of those. She's caught in adultery, she's alone, and she's the one who's hurled into the square. If you will, I want to welcome us to just pause and take a look at this story and see what we can learn from it. This is an image. I'd like you to look at it. Just take some moments and look at this image. And you can tell me in the chat, what do you see in this image? What is the first thing that catches your attention? What do you see in this image? You can write in the
All
chat.
men except for it's all men except for the one woman. I think it's all men and one woman.
All men and one woman. Thank you very much. Anyone else? You can unmute yourself and speak, or you can write in the chat. What stands out for you in this picture?
I think apart from there being one woman, she's the one who's being accused and being judged by the man, and there are no women to support her, or they are not involved.
Yeah, there's not a lot of women involved in this case. Thank you very much for sharing. So we have another one. Tell me what you see, what stands out for you in that one. What do you see? What captures your attention?
It's again the men who are bringing the women for judgment.
Yeah. Anyone else? And you can write in the chat. I can see the chat, so it's okay. Anyone else?
I think the one thing for me, what I saw, even in the last one, it was the girl trying to cover up, like cover up her shame in some ways. And this one, she's somehow already clothed, but the other one, it was like this idea of, yeah, like hiding, hiding shame or feeling shamed.
Exactly, hiding or feeling shame. Anyone else see anything that jumps out at you? Anything that you see? Anything unique? Anything that speaks to you?
Perhaps, I mean, like there are other people who are just looking and not really coming to help or support, but just accepting what is happening. Passive observer.
Yeah, we have some observers in this one. They're not, they have
including women.
Including women.
In the second.
Yeah, in the second one, there's some women.
And the donkey feel embarrassed.
And the donkey look embarrassed.
Say that again.
Burdened.
He just wants to get
Okay.
out.
Say what?
No, the donkey doesn't want to be involved.
The donkey wants to leave the scene. That's why I don't want to be involved in this scene.
Say,
Yeah.
don't blame me.
Yeah, please don't put me in this scene. Yeah, there's a lot going on in these pictures. So again, I have some more questions. Let me close the chat. The question I asked is, what do you see in those two pictures? There's a lot of responses. What stands out for you in those pictures? But now the other question is, which character are you? If you were in those two pictures, I'll go again back then. Are you the woman? Where would you be? Where would you place yourself in this space, in these pictures? Where are you? Would you be the woman? Would you be the man that is not there? Would you be the accusers, the crowd, the Jesus?
The donkey?
The donkey? Okay, we have somebody. Where would you be? Who would you be in this? You want to be the donkey? Okay, we have,
Donkey.
yeah, we have a taker for the donkey. Where else do you want to be? There's a ground, there's a sky, there's a cobalt. You can see the cobalt stones on the ground. There's a lot of details in this picture. There's also a lot of details in this picture. There's houses, there's trees, there's a flying bird. Where would you be? Who would you be in this?
I think there is a third party is missing there, a
There is a
passive
what?
and a third party, the activist, who
The
would
act.
the only one is Christ himself. So I would say that something is missing in the picture. Perhaps I personally like to be the missing piece in the picture.
Okay, we have a missing piece in the picture. What else? Who are you in this picture? Where would you place yourself?
I think
Donkey running away from the situation. Thank you, Mary.
That's
We have
fair.
to take us for the donkey.
perhaps I would place myself amidst the people who are the onlookers, but it may
Okay.
be because they don't care, but it may be also because they do not have the space to speak up, and that is not acceptable. That it's not their place to speak or say anything.
Yeah, that's also yes. You're among the onlookers because it's not your place to speak. You don't have power to say anything. Okay. Any last takers that want to place themselves in these pictures? Either of them? This one or this one?
I agree with the onlookers because I do feel like in the situation there's so many classes going on. You know, the religious leaders kind of dictating what's happening, and then you have people that have less and less power. And I think that is very much so. You don't quite know what's going on too. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
might not be talking to you as well.
And who are the artists? Because if it seems the artists are both pictures of men.
Why would you say that?
Because there is no any elements of an objective approach to a woman who is not a sinner as the rest of the men. Even if she is a sinner, is equal. At least if a woman was painting that, there would have been some more elements in that. One of the cultures, I'm sure it is also in Africa, and especially in the Middle East, Africa and the Middle East, we learn to read between the lines. And that is why I think if the painters were women, they would have read between the lines. There would be some elements of that within the pictures.
Wow.
Paintings.
Good point.
Yeah, I agree with that because there are no sympathetic women.
Exactly.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you so much for your observation of this picture, your interactions with these pictures, and your sharing of the same. This is very interesting. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have placed ourselves. This is good. We are with the picture. We are with the story now. If you allow me, I want us to read the text. Just read it verbatim and see where it takes us. Give me 1 second, and there you have it. Can you see my screen still?
Yes.
Thank you very
No, we
much.
just have woman caught in adultery, John 8:1-11.
Yes, John 8:1-11. Thank you. So, but Jesus, it says, went to the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning, he came again to the temple. All the people came to him. He sat down and taught them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery. Placing her in the midst, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now, in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such. What do you say about her?" This they said to test him, that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. And as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her." And once more, Jesus, he bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. But when they had it, they went away, one by one, beginning with the eldest, and Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus looked up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and do not sin again." And there we have it. That's our scripture. If you notice in this scripture, again, they only bring the woman. They quote the law of Moses. They say their intention is very explicit, is to test Jesus. And as someone in this discussion commented, this woman is naked. She's vulnerable. She is bait. In the pictures, in the images that we looked at, I feel like they really tried to cover up this woman. I'm not sure anybody caught up in adultery is caught up in any clothes. And if she was able to grasp anything, really, she must have just been hanging on, something very small. So this woman is really like, physically, her body is exposed. She's just out there for the world to see. And these women, they don't care about her. They have left the other person that she was with, which I'm assuming is a man, and they have thrown her at the feet of Jesus. If you see from the second picture, it's like a crowded place. People are there, different types of people. So it's not like a private, no, it's public. Jesus answers to these people. And what he says is, whoever has no sin, let them be the first, to condemn, to throw the stone. Bends down to write, and all these people leave, beginning with the eldest, we are told, they all leave. And then Jesus looks up to the woman, addresses her, asks her, "Where are your accusers?" And then says, "Even me, I don't condemn you. You can go." And this practice of centering women in wrongdoing is as old as the ages, really, since the beginning, when Adam says the famous phrase, "This woman that you gave me, she's the one that made me sin." And I think humanity has taken cue from that. And yeah, these women that you created, these are the ones that have made us sin. Khalid Hussein has made this most famous quote, like, "A compass needle that points north. A man's accusing fingers always finds a woman." Always, always, unfortunately so. And unfortunately, even more so, including in spiritual spaces, including in religious spaces, including in spaces where we go to find spiritual solace or spiritual help or spiritual safety. Those are still the same spaces that the finger points at the woman. And I have a question that I would just like us to engage maybe for 1 minute. What is it about women? What do you think? What is it about women that has caused men throughout church history, throughout human history, to always point an accusing finger at them? What do you think? What do you think? What is it about women? You can share in the chat, you can open your mic and share. What do you think it is about women that causes this accusing finger, that causes them to be the bait that is thrown in the public square, that causes them to, that nobody feels, "Oh, these ones you can shame, these ones you can undress and put on them, these ones you can divide into 12 pieces and to make a point"? What is it about women? What do you think? What is it about women that causes them to be the ones pointed at? Any takers?
some aspect is the vulnerability of women, maybe physically. Let's just say that as a key asset view.
The vulnerability of women. Thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, that's possible.
I think perhaps it also says much more about insecurity in their position as men, and especially in relation to power dynamic they hold. And within the power dynamic comes responsibility. They perhaps are okay with the power, but when it comes to responsibility, they feel insecure. They may not feel insecure when they have power, but when they have responsibilities, they feel more insecure.
Interesting. The power does not, they are okay with the power. It's the responsibilities that make them insecure. Interesting. Thank you for your contribution. Anyone else?
Well, it's interesting that you did the Genesis passage. So maybe there's a ongoing sin of Adam, before the women could, but we're sort of blaming God, which is a real dangerous thing, and maybe that's kind of the cop out of men is really a way of taking a shot at God by pointing at the woman. So
okay, so you're getting at God through the women.
Yeah, and also the residing guilt of disobedience and sin.
So you failed, you don't want to take responsibility, so you get a scapegoat.
It's right. It's not my fault. It's her.
It's Adam's fault.
I think it's the patriarchal system that is there in almost every culture.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It informs the language,
System
informs
of
behavior.
patriarchy.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Let me see how we do. Okay. So, including such ridiculous, narratives that like this one, the law in question, they talk about the law of Moses, and I've said this again. This law was not talking about women. It was talking about everyone who was caught. But for some reason, it is only the woman they throw there. And we have come up with a couple of suggestions and a couple of ideas as to what informs this kind of behavior, what informs this kind of practice that manifests itself in different ways, in different spaces we're in, but specifically in structured religion. Thank you so much for your contribution. Let me close this chat. Thank you. All right. When we look at Jesus and how he responds to this woman, and not just this woman, really that is his pattern throughout the New Testament and through the very detailed and recorded in all the synoptic gospels, that Jesus is standing with the women. He honors them. He looks at them, he dignifies them, he elevates them. Jesus does not even look up. If you think this woman is coming here, she's naked, she's trying to dress herself. Jesus is not like, okay, here, I'm looking at your nakedness. I don't think Jesus just looking down, looking at the men, looking down, giving her space to gather herself, like honoring her, and noticing her vulnerability and not exposing her, not saying, okay, I'm joining with these people. Yes, the law of Moses does. No. He really sees this woman as what she's just bait. She's just being used to prove a point, to as a means to an end. Her humanity is not a factor in this space, but Jesus brings back her humanity, sees her as a person and honors her. He's very gentle with this woman. If you see the kind of talk and the kind of conversations she has. Contrast this with what happens with the powerful religious men. We're told it's the Pharisees and Sadducees that are bringing this woman. They dishonor this woman, really. They drag her from bed, they shame her, they're accusing her, they're condemning her. Really, what they want is that she be stoned. And it's really unfortunate because many times, again, in structured religion, we have seen that instead of following the path of Jesus, we have followed the path of powerful religious men, powerful religious entities, and sided with the oppressors instead of siding with the oppressed. Again, as from our discussion, we said there are many factors that come in place. Some people are muted, some people cannot say anything, some people are part of the oppressed. A lot of factors come in, but that does not make it right that women are, being thrown at the public square and exposed like this. and denied and really humiliated and not treated well. Because even in such circumstances as Jesus showed us here, there is possibility to do what is right. And Jesus does what is right. So it is possible to do what is right. Everything is integrated, really. I love that word. It's my practice called integrated living. You can figure. How women get treated in spiritual spaces is really not unique to other spaces. It's the same. It's the same the way they're treated at home. It's the same way they're treated in society. In Kenya today, we say it's the same way they're treated in matatus, in the public transport systems. It's the same way they're treated in the shopping place. It's the same way whistling, the calling, cat calling. It's the same way. There's nothing, there is no unique treatment of women in one place. It's all integrated and it meshes together. And our culture, our society, our homes, they really inform our politics and even economics. It really inform how women are treated, and including in the structured religion. And it's not just the law of Moses that allowed the women to pick up a woman from bed, and drag her. It took an entire collective of humanity. Again, as you have seen in that picture, everybody played a part in that woman being exposed like that. Whether you are silent, whether you are the donkey trying to run away, whether you are the cobalt on which they was walking, the trees, everything, the collective of humanity, everyone there was contributing. Whether you are accusing or not, everybody contributed to this woman being mistreated in this way. And I would like to present to you that I do not think that her sin was adultery. Her sin was being a woman. Because if her sin was adultery, it would have been two people dragged at the feet of Jesus. So if it was her sin, really, her sin from where I sit is that she was a woman. And I cannot reiterate this enough, that everyone who was involved, whether passive or active, made this situation happen. As happens in our present day, all the injustices that happen to women who do not adhere to the structured religion. Injustice against women is not removed from any of us. All of us, in a way, make it happen. And I myself have been on both sides of the divide. I've been the people carrying the stones. I've been the one held at the feet of Jesus. So it's not, I'm not taking any high moral ground or like, no. I have taken both sides. So this is a self-reflection. It's a coming to self. It's a collecting of what have I done and how can I be better and how can I, follow the path and the example of Jesus other than the path of the religious power for men. And again, the opposite is also true, which is what I'm saying, that it takes all of us to dishonor, but it also takes all of us to honor and dignify women. So now we have a call to action. We have had this conversation. We've listened to what we are saying. We've listened to this woman. We've looked at her story. We've put ourselves in the setting, located ourselves in the story, assigned ourselves roles through visual divina of where we would be, who we would have been. And what is your response to the least, the last, the lost, those who sparks against the wall, as Papa Howard Daman used to say? What is your response? How do you respond to these people within your circle of influence? I'm not talking about those people there that are far away from, no, the ones within, in the marketplace, in the space where you're in. What is your response? Are you quiet? Are you in the accusers? Are you like Jesus? Do you honor? Do you dishonor? Do you say something? Are you the activist who is missing from the picture? Where are you? And when women and girls are under any form of attack, be it verbal, physical, policy-based, spiritual, political, economic, social, what is your response? What do you say? What do you do? And again, as I've said, even not saying or doing something is action. Action is either way, passive, active, doing something, not doing something, speaking up, not speaking up. Either way, you have done something. Again, in your circles of influence, how are you standing up for women against structural oppression, specifically within structured religion? How are you standing up for women? How are you standing up for those that have not fitted into the box, the glory of structured religion? How are you standing for them? How are you speaking for them? How are you inviting them in? How are you being identified with them? Are you identified with the oppressed, the oppressor, or the silent, watchers? Where are you? Again, as I said, this is not a condemning thing. We're having a conversation, just asking ourselves this question. And lastly, I like to bring it to us. We have the 16 days of activism, really a global campaign against gender-based violence from 25th of November to 10th December. And how can you, again, this is another a way you can practically, join this fight. The theme this year is invest financially to prevent violence against women and girls, putting your money where your mouth is. What calls to you in this fight against, violence, gender-based violence against women and girls? More so within structured religion, in your space of influence, where you are, where you work, where you live. What is your call? What can you do? And yeah, we'll just take a short, 5 seconds pause as we think about these questions and what you can do. And then I will go to liturgy, and then we can go to question and answers. Does that sound good? Yeah. Good. So let me go to liturgy, if you will join me. God of the weak, outcast, ashamed, God of the woman caught in adultery, alone. God who is not quick to judge, God who dignifies, God who is not trapped. Teach us your ways, to see women, to hear women, to honor women, to elevate women, to fight for women, to speak for women, to love on women, today and always. Amen. Thank you very much. We can do question and answers.
Yeah, if you would stop sharing screen.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. You have brought in very appropriate examples from the Bible where the men are pointing their fingers at the women, accusingly. Yes, so and also for sharing your life story, for being brave to share your life story with us, amidst us. And so we will open up the time for comments or any questions that comes up in your mind. So for those of you who are online, if you look at your screen, you have at the bottom reactions, and there you will have something that tells you to raise your hand. Okay, while the others are formulating their questions or comments, I will just first of all ask you, you've shared a little bit about the challenge that you have faced and the struggle you have faced. So I want and being involved and also being a biblical scholars, have there been anything that you have been able to do something about the place of women, or how women are being viewed in the glorified church structure? So I'm asking mostly in terms of your experiences, and also whether there has been specific things that have been done through endeavors such as yours to sensitize and to create awareness in your context. Yeah.
Thank you very much. In my own, personal contribution to this is that I have chosen the path of vulnerability to share my own story. And this is my own life story, including, child loss, talked about it, blogged about it, gone on national TV to talk about reproductive health challenges, talked about gender-based violence, and also created spaces where women who have gone or undergoing the same can come. As I said, I do healing work, can come for healing, and can come to sacred spaces, spaces where they feel safe, and they can come to seek help, and they can come to seek community. So providing what I needed, but I didn't have. Yeah, so that has been my path. And in terms of outside, what has been done for me, what I've noticed is, as I continue to speak, in my the spaces that I thought would really accept me, maybe my home church or home country, but other spaces have opened doors for me, and I've been able to, enter into those spaces and really live myself fully, practice my gifts, do my healing work, do spiritual direction, teach. So also expanding my thoughts, my expanding where I feel I can have influence, that it doesn't have to be in this box of structured religion. It can also be outside. I can serve without having like being a priest or being in the holy orders. I can still serve without titles. That's what I mean. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anne, and then after Anne will be David Singh. And
thank you so much for your presentation. It was really interesting. I think you structured it so well, it was really easy to follow. One question that I have is, you describe yourself as being part of the Anglican tradition, or I think I've got that right, and yet you've been so rejected systematically. How do you manage to sit in that space where you embrace a tradition which has hurt you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And for me, I became an Anglican as an adult. So I chose to be in the Anglican church. And one of the things, I was in the Pentecostal church, then I moved to the Anglican church. And one of the things that really helped me in my healing journey and my life journey was the liturgy of the Anglican church, just the order, the written prayers, or the contemplation, the meditation. And for me, I say, even if they never give me anything else, they gave me that gift. And from giving me that gift, I also now branched into also writing liturgy myself, writing liturgy for the church calendar. And the gift of liturgy is, written prayer, contemplative prayer, and then going ahead and studying and becoming a spiritual director in the Anglican tradition has been life-giving for me. So it's been you might not accept me, but you've given me a gift, so I will take the gift, and I'm okay with this gift. We don't have to how do I say, I'm okay with what I have. So I'm here by choice, but I really, of course, I do wish they accepted me, but it is what it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
David.
Yes, thank you. I come from a culture which is very similar to yours. And I have to say, within my own family, I've seen similar stories of women, including my own sister, who was largely sidelined from church leadership, even though she was immensely more gifted than her husband. And eventually that led to the church and attendance going down. And now, obviously, the church had to be shut down. So there were, concrete consequences of the choices they made as far as leadership in the church is concerned. But as you were talking, I was thinking about Talcott Parson, who's a well-known scholar who talked about growing structural differentiation in organized religion, or structural religion, as you choose to call it, with specialized roles which are assigned to different people who are deemed to have different capacities. And women, of course, are considered low in capacity in many cultures, and therefore they are assigned certain roles that only women can perform. Men are never given those roles. But the reality is that organized religion is not a static entity. There is a lot of dynamism and change that's taking place in churches, for example, in my part of the world, definitely in the churches in the West, where, according to a Pew research I was reading, we read about millennials who are leading the shift away from organized religion. And one of the impacts of that in the church has been for the faith leaders and church leaders to rethink their approach to ministry and leadership. And women are increasingly being invited to important leadership positions because they are now concerned that somehow their power is going to go completely if there's nobody in the pews. So my question to you is, of course, the African context is very different from the West, but are you able to see structural religion as a dynamic entity and not just a static thing where no changes are taking place? So in other words, what are the silver linings? Are there any examples or stories of women breaking the glass ceiling and making an impact in the church as far as leadership is concerned?
Thank you, David. Thank you for sharing how you identify with my story and sharing also the story of your own family. Thank you very much. And your question really makes a lot of sense. The dynamics continue to change because women are not sitting and say, okay, now you have said no. No, including myself. We continue to seek ways, we continue to expand, we continue to think and look outside the box. 2 examples I'll give. Whereas I've not been accepted for ordination or holy orders within the Anglican Church, I'm currently accepted for ordination within the Baptist Church. Okay, so I will be ordained as a Baptist minister at some point in the near future.
Nice.
On the other hand, within my own Anglican church, we now have 2 female bishops. Females who are occupying the spaces of, which is really like, it's shattering of the glass ceiling and beyond. It was like we used to wish it would happen in our lifetimes, but we never thought it would happen. And now it has happened. We have an assistant bishop and we have a female bishop, which is amazing. And they continue to forge paths and shatter, like structures that have stood over decades and decades. And again, also, although even if these ladies that have ascended to such positions are elder women, young people also continue to challenge these spaces, to challenge the expressions of structured religion and bring their own, flavors. I like them. Bring their own uniqueness, bring their own freshness and fresh eyes, which is really needed. And again, as you have said, when those within, which sometimes it is selfish actually, when those within power begin to see that their influence is fading, the numbers are dropping, then are like, okay, we will accept, okay, we will open it up. But we say it doesn't matter whichever way you decide to open it up, we are in, then we will make the difference. So yeah, that's how I look at it. Thank you, David.
I have a question.
Yes, Sarah.
Thank you for the interactive presentation teaching. I don't know what you had. And one of the things which you didn't include in your presentation is the place of women in African tradition, and whether African tradition religions also, you didn't also put it in your presentation, whether that is also structured religion, and where is the place of women. And then the other thing you didn't mention here, because you cannot negotiate your place, within the church, if you do not bring the context. Because my view, bringing the Bible is not enough to negotiate your space, to negotiate our space. We also need to bring the context to negotiate our space. By the context, I mean both time and the geographical issues. Because if, for example, where the place of women were from within the tradition, African traditions, and now where is within the context of African society, where is the place, not within the religion, but African society, where is the place of women, or how the women been negotiating their place within the society? And then how can their conversation also add to the conversation within the church? And then whether, for example, within the new conversation of seeking equality in the society, will the male domination, if continue as it is, be a threat to the future church, the growth church in the future? Because there are all these discussions needs to be within the much bigger context rather than only biblical or the church itself as an organized religion.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those inputs. They are well taken in. Yeah, you really make good points about, you know, the male domination, the threat, the importance of context, how we are negotiating within context of both time and geography. And you asked a question about the place of women in African traditional religion and how that has affected. First is to say that African traditional religion is really it's not something that exists. I don't know how else to say that. There's nothing we can call African traditional religion. We can call Kikuyu traditional religion, that is my tribe. We can call Luo traditional religion. We can call, according to tribes or according to languages, according to geography, again, as you've stated, within the African continent. But we cannot say that we have one African traditional religion. That is not true. So within, again, so now I come back to myself, look at myself within my tribe. I'm a Kikuyu. Within the Kikuyu, you know, religious practices. Before colonialism, I will just try and just go this very quick. But before colonialism, really the women were, in terms of being priestesses, taking the place as diviners, as healers, was very elevated. But then we get the complication of, not complication, but we get colonialism coming in and just coupled up with the missionaries and the Christianity, and it just muddles everything up. So what you find, like today in Kikuyu religious practices, we do have the healers, we do have the diviners, we do have the priests, but when it comes to structure, for most people, there's a tension. Am I a Christian or am I a Kikuyu religious person? And most people, when the Christian religious space frowns upon the traditional religious space. So most people, they will not outrightly express their religious affinities. So that means there's a lot of, it has gone a lot of, you know, there's a lot of privacy, there's a lot of secrecy, there's a lot of not public exploration of these spaces. So in terms of talking about how it is structured and if it is affecting women, if it is dominating women, the data and the information is not as much as we structured, openly practiced religion. So that's what I say. But this is really good. This is really good input. And yes, I have taken
You look at it, look at the conversations are made rather than to see yourself here or there. The conversations are made. That is what I'm trying to do.
Say that again. I missed you. The conversations?
The conversation made within that traditional, the African traditional societies. And
yes.
Conversations or negotiations are made within the society in Africa right now, in the secular society, secular world, how it moves on from both.
Yes.
And just look at those kind of, to see whether they can join to your conversation to make your point stronger rather than in the isolation only to church. That was my point, actually.
Thank you very much.
We'll go on and we have Dr. Gigi. Is that how it's pronounced? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. My sister, I so appreciate your presentation from your biblical reflection, as well as just an incredible amount of vulnerability in sharing your own story. So thank you for that. Sharing the gems and the pearls of your story and your wisdom. I just want to highlight one thing that you said that is profound. When you said the sin of this woman was not adultery. And part of the way we know that, you said, is because they did not bring the other person involved, which presumably was a man. The sin of this woman was not adultery. The sin of the woman was being a woman. I just wanted to highlight that statement because that is profound. And really, for me, what that highlights as a woman is is the reality that we live in a society that is so, and many times a brand of Christianity that is so steeped in patriarchy, that it is embedded in the fabric of society, in the fabric of faith and faith traditions. And what often happens is, what we do, the finger is pointed at what we do or what we say as being wrong. But actually the real issue is who we are as a woman. That's actually the real problem. And many times that patriarchy will be kind of covered over with, let's make it about you because you're the problem. And so we point the finger at what you do or what you say, rather than actually just saying the problem is that you're a woman. There's a grave double standard. The way Martin Luther King said we live in two different Americas. He was talking about race, but I would argue the same is true for gender. We live in two different societies, not just in America, one for men and one for women. So thank you for shining the light on that reality. I've never heard it put like that regarding this passage.
Thank you, Dr. Gigi. Sister, I appreciate you.
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for your work, and then also your vulnerability. That's definitely one way how we learn so well about the situation. I guess I just had one thought, and I think you kind of cover it in your liturgy a little, but I just wanted to highlight it within the story of the woman. So you said, like God elevates her, and I really felt like when he said, whoever hasn't sinned, throw the first stone, he elevates her value to equal each person's value and creates this new paradigm. Like, no, if you didn't do it, if she, you know what I mean? Like, I think that there's something to that where Jesus is really elevating women, elevating her, and in one, like kind of like blowing off the shame. Like, no, she's just as equal and as valuable as who you are. And I think that really is a value statement. So I kind of just want to share as a comment. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't see any hands being raised. Yeah, I would just like maybe just to continue thinking about, or perhaps you could share a little bit about how the patriarchal society and patriarchy also has invaded, or is also present there in the what you call the glory, what did you call the glorified structured institution? How much of the patriarchy, the patriarchal system that is there, that is there in the African context, is brought into the space of glorified structured institution that you're talking about.
Yes, it's the glory of structural religion is really staying within the box of what has been defined. And as I stated, what has been defined by patriarchy. It has not included the inputs, the ideas, the suggestions, the acknowledgement of the humanity of women. So that means if it does not serve patriarchy, and again, we talked about power play, we talked about power dynamics. If it does not serve the structure of power, it is going to be condemned. And who are some of the most, like, it's women are not serving the structure. So the condemnation rings very high for them. And the preservation of the masculine by patriarchy is also something to observe. The patriarchy likes to preserve the masculine, the men, at the expense, most if not all the times, of women and children. And again, underplay power. The person who talked about power dynamics, and power is good, it tastes nice, but responsibility, no, we don't want anything to do with responsibility. We just want power. And I will repeat again to the choir that these definitions, the fact that most of the people, even including when I talked about the Anglican Church being structured around scripture, tradition, and reason, if you look at scripture, if you look at tradition, if you look at reason, who is saying what all these things are? Most, if not all the time, it is men. So that means the voice, that means the power with, that means the ones to be protected, that means the ones who become the standard of everything is the men. So we have problems right there, even from the ground coming up.
Thank you. I see Melissa's hand. Melissa, please unmute yourself.
Hello, thank you so much. Sorry I'm not on screen. It's very early for me here. I'm on the lands of the Coast Salishan Duwamish people on Turtle Island, and it's very early for me. So, Wanjiku, thank you so much for sharing your story and just all of your expertise and insight. You're a living testimony of the things that you are teaching, so that just amplifies what you're saying about this scripture. So I appreciate your voice in this space. And I think when I think about this story, and it's almost, and we're talking about systems and just how structural religion and how patriarchy kind of come in, and it's the system that really sets up, you know, women as the problem and as the sin, in your words. And I think that there's a part of me when I see how Jesus responds, you know, he sends everybody away in a very creative way, but then speaks right to her. And I think that there's a part of me that wants them to still be in the room to hear his words over her and to hear what he is saying. But then there's another part of me that's like, well, in that space where there's a system in place that is harmful to her, she needed to have them removed, maybe, for her to feel safe enough to receive his words. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. That there's a part of me that wants that story to be different in one way, and then maybe understands why Jesus did it that way. But I guess my question is how, just in light of how Jesus responds in that way, how do we respond to this, to the people in a system that are being marginalized? Like, how do we stand up against the system, but how do we speak to the in this case, like the woman? I don't know if that my question is very clear, but as
it's clear. It's clear, Melissa. And I think you really bring wonderful perspective. Just again, amplifying the honor. This woman is not in a good space, as we have seen in the pictures, and as you can imagine from the story. This woman, she's physically like exposed. Jesus really takes a lot of time to just honor that. Just put yourself together, looks up to the people, looks at in a very honoring way. And I feel as we interact with people, with women who have been oppressed by the systems, who have become victims of structural religion, how do we interact with them and with the oppressors at the same time? How do we honor the oppressed, and how do we speak truth to those who are oppressing, still covering the woman? And I think Jesus provides, again, as you have said, I'm just repeating what you say, he provides a wonderful example. He sends his people away, puts this woman in a spot where she feels safe. She feels she's alone with this person who sees her, who honors her, who is not going to harm her, who is not going to shame her or embarrass her. So she feels, even the way you have actually put it, her ears are open to hear his words of comfort, to hear his words to her, and also to just be able to gather herself again, once again, because now there's not a crowd, there's not people, so she can, calmly like find a way out. I feel this is a really good example of how we can speak truth to power while still taking care of those who are oppressed, those who are marginalized, those who are victims of the structures of structural religion, and specifically, women, girls too, the vulnerable, yeah. Yet still maintaining that voice out against oppression. Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Melissa.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Gigi, I don't know whether you have another question or your hand continues to be raised from your previous question.
Can
No,
I make-
thank you for asking. I did raise it again.
Yes, okay.
Yes, this dialogue is raising a thought and question I would love to hear Wanjiku's wisdom on. As we talk about Jesus, the way that you put it, Wanjiku, is beautiful, that he was very creative in the way that he removed people, right? But it was against Jewish customs at this time for a man to be alone with a woman. It violated religious boundaries. So Jesus was actually putting himself in a position to be accused by being alone with her. And that is also profound, right? And my sister Wanjiku, for the sake of the rest of us in the room, she spoke on an Instagram series that we did around a book called Psalms for Black Lives. And as I was just pondering this just now, that Jesus put himself in a situation where he was alone with a woman, which put him squarely at the center of accusation. It reminds me of something that Wanjiku said when she spoke in our series. And she spoke, my sister, you spoke about what you called the dark God. And when I tell you that thing, I have been chewing on that for a year. We did that in January. I have been chewing on that for a year. Sister, I wonder if you would be willing to offer us some tidbits on your thoughts on the dark God, and how you see that connecting to this passage.
Thank you, Dr. Gigi. Actually, what you bring up is the issue of cost. Standing up with the oppressed, standing up with the marginalized, standing up for women against structural religion oppression comes at a cost. It comes at a personal cost to the person who chooses to do it. And again, this lots of stuff is really connected. What I told you about the theme for this year for 16 days against violence is put your money where your mouth is. There's a cost. It costs you something. It costs a reputation. It costs finances. It costs associations. It costs to be associated with the oppressed. And Jesus chooses it. Jesus is not following the Billy Graham rule. He's breaking all the rules and really being identified with this woman. He's not leaving her on the ground. He's literally on the ground with this woman, writing on he's not on a high, he's not speaking from a pedestal. Jesus is on the ground. And which brings me to what Gigi's talking about, a liturgy I wrote about the dark God. And for me, my experience when I was writing that was, I've known you as many things as light, as out there, as the good, but from my own personal experience in life, I came to know him as the dark God, the one who sits in darkness, the one who is darkness, who's not afraid to be identified with darkness, with what we want to shun, with what we want to put away, with what we want to hide, with what we want to be ashamed of. That's what God identifies with. And I feel that's the beauty of God. And that's why I call him the dark God. Not just the shiny good time. No, even in the silent times, even when I needed to be writing on the ground, protecting me, being on my level, coming down to my space, that is my dark God. Yeah. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And
So my question is linked to something that you said. You talked about what do we do? How do we take action? And you said that there's 16 days of activism coming up from the 25th of November to the 10th of December. I'm just wondering, what are you doing and how can you inspire us to be activists in our own context? What are you up to in the next few weeks?
Thank you so much. Again, I'm sharing my story. I from the breakdown of my marriage and everything that happened and the abuse, I've written about it so much. But once again, sharing my story, one of the things that I keep saying is to begin with your circle of influence. I say harm is being visited upon women at your doorstep. It's not out there. It's not across the oceans. It's at your doorstep. Everybody knows a woman. Everybody knows a child, a girl who is either being abused, who is being oppressed, who's suffering, who needs the help. That is the one. What practical thing can you do for them? Can you provide them with food? Can you provide them with shelter? Can you link them up with the legal advice? Can you link them up with spaces that can keep them safe until they are able to put up for themselves? Are you able to link them up with economic, provisions and stuff like that? What can you do for them? Because most of the time, I find it's easy to talk about those ones there. It's easy to write. It's easy to say things. But here, Wanjiku, you're welcome to apply for CMS or PhD. Thank you, baby. It's here within your circle. Who can you attend to? And if you look at the model of Jesus in this story, he comes down to this one woman. Is very particular, very specific, is to the one. I feel if we do the one, we will cover the all. But when we try to cover the all, we always miss the one. So just look for your one, for your one, for your one, for your one. And then we'll end up covering everyone. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you. This will be the last comment or question, Sarah.
One of the things which I have to encourage us is we should not, exclude men, because if we are going to whatever in the call of action of these things, it has to be include men. I think our fight is not against men. We need to remember that. It is the hierarchy system, male domination system in relation to masculinity and femininity. And sometimes among us women, there are more male dominated ideology. And I think that another thing is I'm Iranian, experiencing from the Iranian women's uprising, one of their success was to include men in their protest. And if we stand all together, it will be much more. That is what I say is, okay, look at the negotiation within the society, in African society, within what is happening there, because negotiation is in two ways. And they need to be with us rather than we against them or they against us. And that is what we are, I think the target is the patriarchy rather than men. I think that is, if we encourage men, this is actually danger to them too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only the exclusion of women is danger to men as well. That it is important for them and us to see that, rather than if we gain a space and they lose their space, and there will not be equality. Yes, I think that is my encouragement in any of that.
That is really true, because what we are talking out against is a system. We're not talking out against agenda. We are talking out against a system. The thing is that this system is upheld by individuals. So sometimes we have to talk out against the individuals as well. But the main focus is really bringing down the systems of oppression, bringing down the systems of structural religions that don't affirm women, that don't see women, that oppress women. And is the issue of allyship. As you can see, really, even in this story, Jesus is a man. It is the Pharisees that are coming, and they're coming to a man, and the woman is in the middle, and he comes in as an ally. So he's an ally, still the same gender, but against the system, and of course, calling out the specific individuals who are involved in this action. So there's a lot of allyship, but focusing, it's a system that needs to come down. But not forgetting that the system is really upheld by individuals. So the system is not an amorphous thing floating. It is upheld by individuals. So also individuals have to be named and called out. But again, with the not seeking to throw out, but to really reconcile and build something that is healthy and nurtures everybody, all of us that are part of the human beings. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Wanjiku. I think you already read the message from our colleague, Dr. David Singh. So please do apply to OCMS to do your PhD. We will not judge you on
Oh,
you being a woman. And yes, thank you very much for your presentation and also bringing yourself to a space of vulnerability, because there are many things that we are not comfortable with sharing, but I think through your presentation, you have lifted up the idea or the concept of perception of self-worth. I think that is what you have brought out very strongly by your sharing and what you have about yourself, and also with what you have given us through your lecture. And yes, you have introduced us to the concept of the dark God. And also, the one thing which is very important, I think, for all of us is to remember that all the ones will make the whole or the one. So I think each of us can do something, and we don't have to wait for others to guide us or lead us. So thank you very much for your contribution. Yeah.
okay.
And with that, we will close our lecture. Thank you once
Thank you.
again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.